Yeah, so on the idea of consciousness, people really talk heavily about this one. Some theists will basically describe it as like, you can't get consciousness from non-consciousness, and that's a fine way to go about it. Um, some atheists look at like origin of life research, um, and it can be a little bit different, but basically the idea of getting non-life, you have non-life and you get life from it. And it's kind of a weird one, and it could be true. I don't deny that origin of life research could eventually find an answer, but right now we don't have an answer. But perhaps one day we will have an answer. But basically, their philosophers of consciousness have basically stated it in a few different ways, and one way we go about it is they call it the hard problem of consciousness. And one way they put it is like, you can't build a glass tower out of Legos because it's the wrong material. And that's like what it's the analogy works with like consciousness because it's like, you know, the foundation of existence is like the foundation of conscious minds is how we could go about trying to answer this hard problem of consciousness because you know we would need the right types of materials to get to something like a mind that people have. So if you suppose like foundations of reality is just made of public or more so like third person aspects, which would just be like stuff like mass, shape, and motion, things that are like about physical reality, you know, then that's where the construction problem arises, according to philosophers, because you're basically saying, you know, we, it's like saying, or like I said a minute ago, that we have a construction problem to the idea of like you can't build a glass tower out of Legos. It's just a contradiction. So, um, it's like you. Oh, you got someone by you. Oh, you got these things, yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, I need to find me a gun over here too. I have a flatline, but I don't have anything too great. Other than that, just that's it. But basically, the problem is about how private sense properties, purely from public nonsense uh, properties alone. It's really hard, like the third person aspects of molecules only combine for more molecules that are more complex, so like third person aspects, like all you're doing is adding shapes on shapes. And like, another analogy to like the Lego thing would be like, you could imagine where you had Legos and this Lego doesn't have thought, and like you could ask, well, why doesn't this Lego have thought? Well, the obvious answer would be like, well, because it's the wrong material. It's not the type of, yeah, yeah. It's like it's not made of the correct types of pieces that you would expect to see if something had a legitimate mind. Um, and then you could also posit like, well, what if you added more uh, Legos? Like, just added more matter? Would it eventually become more conscious, or would it become conscious just because you add more? And it's like, well, no, it wouldn't, and that's why philosophers call it this, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, on a purely naturalistic, materialistic worldview, consciousness is really weird. It's baffling, We just, it's something you don't expect if naturalism were true. So, like, nonsense properties never would add to sense, you know. And that's where like the Lego analogy helps. I feel like it doesn't matter how much, even if you have an infinite amount of Legos, you'll still never get a conscious mind from a Lego because it's just it's purely material. So how do you get a non-material mind from a material thing? And I think that's the question. Is like science can't answer that question. That's a philosophical question. Ooh, looks like a 30-30. Yeah, he was beaming. Yeah, they're up there. He should be able to rev you. Oh man. See, I'm on the left of them. Wow. Him and I might just split up for a bit. Yeah, that thing was doing some damage. But yeah, does this argument make a little bit of damage though, or does this make some sense though with the idea of like, it doesn't matter how many billions of years you wait or how many materialistic processes you have, molecules on molecules doesn't ever add up to a mind. This is something that's been supported by people like Josh Rasmussen, um, and other philosophers in the field that have kind of come to these same conclusions about just that's why even atheistic ones call it the hard problem. It just doesn't add up. It's a, it's what it sounds like. It's a hard problem that science just can't figure out, and then even philosophers are saying, without putting it like to where like almost becoming very you could say it's religiously neutral. Like you don't have to say like, oh, I don't know what did it, so therefore God did it. But it's more so like the way the argument goes. It's like from our experiences and everything that we see, a mind is the best explanation of the data that we have. Oh, nice, he got you in and everything already.